Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Great Smarter, Not Harder, Modern Solution to Site Design Challenges in Civil Projects. This webinar is brought to you by Graitec. My name is Clemens, and I'm pleased to be your moderator today. You can find the schedule of upcoming events, webinars, and training on our calendar at asti.com/calendar, so make sure to check that. Before we dive in, we'd love to learn more about how we can best support you and your business. If you could take a moment to answer the poll question on the right side of the screen, it would help us so much to learn how we can best serve you. We'd also like to invite you to check out our customers training and services. You can scan the QR code on the screen, and please feel free to drop your questions as they come to mind during the presentation in the live chats. We will have time to answer them at the end. So we are very excited to welcome Ken Driscoll as our featured speaker today. Ken brings over 20 years of experience in civil engineering with deep expertise in surveying Autodesk Civil 3D, Map 3D, and GIS services. Throughout his career, Ken has led numerous successful technology implementations for complex civil infrastructures projects, helping teams streamline workflows and optimize results. He also holds multiple Autodesk certifications, reflecting his commitment to staying at the forefront of industry innovation and best practices. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ken. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So do you have your screen share ready so I can hide
Yes.
it? Okay, perfect.
Yep. So it should be there.
Yes, it is.
Wonderful.
It's your turn.
Yeah, and if something happens, but thank you for having me today. Let's see what I want to do. We'll make a few adjustments here. Okay. So my name is Ken Driscoll, and I'm a civil application implementation consultant with Graitec. And Clements mentioned the ideal of my experience in terms of workflow engineering, site development, stormwater management, and also BIM management services. And as you can see, there's a small wealth of knowledge there. So one of the things that we'll be able to do is, because this is an open forum, we'll be able to address any questions that come up that may arise. So the first thing is, thank you for tuning in today. Site grading can often feel like a daunting task, but what if you could grade smarter but not harder? So in this webinar, what we're going to do is we're going to explore some of these innovative and modern solutions that Autodesk have kind of implemented into Civil 3D in reference to how we would approach site design with civil projects, and whether you're working with challenging terrains or, for instance, tight budgets or complex regulations. I'm going to show you some of the different things that different things and strategies that kind of can help, with overcoming some of the grading challenges, and specifically with precision. So by the end of this webinar, you should have a good insight and practical techniques that you'll be looking at in reference to optimizing project workflows and becoming more productive, more proficient. So I am old school. So, and when I say that, I'm from Sofdesk 7 and Sofdesk 8, which if you go all the way back, that was really the civil engineering software that kind of did site development and civil projects. So some of the things I'll talk about in reference to what we'll see, because we're talking about grading. The first thing is, what do we actually know about this topic? So the first thing that I can tell you, that if it was 10 people in one room that was handed the same site, they probably would grade it all differently. So there's certain things and certain aspects that come up. So feature lines, grading objects in Civil 3D, how to model residential lots. How can we help you manage multiple pads in a subdivision? These are some of the things that we'll take a look at. And for instance, what is the process for creating a proposed surface, specifically in Civil 3D? How do we calculate and compare cut and fill volumes without having to create hours of work, specifically for each lot or a specific site? On the other hand, what is our workflow design like for doing driveways and slopes to kind of help meet both design and code requirements? And then not only that, we'll take a look at also this idea of labeling and why should we label, and how to use grading criteria sets in Civil 3D. Specifically, I used to use them all the time for ponds and lots and parking lots and pads, things like that. But you will see that based upon some of the tools that you have in Civil 3D, it will minimize the time that you need to use grading criteria. Then what methods do you use to tie into the existing ground? I always use feature lines. Some people use 3D polylines. And then this idea of how do you handle drainage? So when someone says to me, and how do we approach Civil 3D grading? When someone says to me grading, the first thing that I look at is drainage. So in terms of what I'm going to show today, and some of these things will go a little faster than others, but this is being recorded, so you'll have an opportunity to bring it up and watch it anytime you want. But in terms of today, we're going to talk about grading, and then we're going to make reference to how feature lines can help you, and then also detention ponds or basins, and then roadway grading. Now, if we're not using corridors, we could use feature lines. But typically, if it was a roadway with a cross section with a nice corridor, I would use that in terms of grading. And then site grading, some of the best practices, which include feature lines. And then how are we using retaining walls? Because if we drop feature lines and raise feature lines and created multiple depths and widths for a feature line, we could create a wall. And there's also this idea of a wall in Civil 3D as a break line. So I'm going to try to address those things, and then volume calculations. That'll be pretty quick. And then last but not least, we're going to take a short look at grading optimization. And why are we going to look at grading optimization? If we're looking at grading, and what is the difference? So grading optimization is a add-on application that came out in 2022 in Civil 3D. And I'll talk about some of the benefits of grading optimization. In the same site that I'll be kind of working with, we'll show it in comparison with grading optimization, if we can. So I'll try to meet those challenges, and then questions and answers if we can by the end of this webcast. So my call to action is, if there's something that you've run into or have bottlenecks, reach out. And I'm more than willing and happy to help you with anything, specifically to grading. If you need stormwater management, help. Stormwater management. If we need road design. So all these different things, I will guide you in the best way that I can based upon the knowledge and things that I have and things that have been given to me from others, which is a lot. So grading made easy. Yes, we want to elevate our design, because rough grading is typically this shaping of this site. But to get to this point requires a lot of work, specifically when you have all these parameters to kind of follow. But as you can see, the typical idea of a detention basin or a retention basin, whether you got a wet pond or you have a dry pond. So again, we're not going to PowerPoint to death, but we're just going to make reference to some of the things that the typical civil project kind of looks like in reference to whether it's residential or whether it's commercial or whether it's mass grading in terms of those type of things. And then from Civil 3D, and there's a lot of verbiage, but again, I'm giving access to everything that I show, even the PowerPoint. You'll have access to that if you really want it. But some of the things we'll take a look at that's specific to Civil 3D is working with feature lines. Feature lines, feature lines, feature lines. And the reason I do feature lines is because I'm an old HP user and I don't want to use a calculator ever again. That's the reason. So feature lines allow me to utilize these tools so I keep my hand away from a calculator. So we'll look at some of these things in terms of creating with feature lines from objects, alignments, corridors, stepped offset. And then, of course, this idea of building paths and how feature lines really work in terms of daylighting and targeting and things like that. So again, a lot of different things with the Graitec, over 40 years of transformational power. We want to be able to share that with you. So we have some of these up and ready in terms of proposed service offerings that we want to be able to come to. In the end, it's all about you and your software and how you can get a return on your software. Software is ever transitioning, and we just want to be able to partner with you and say, these are the things that you want to be able to be aware of, and these are the things that you want to be able to do in terms of new challenges and new tools that you want to be able to utilize to make you more proficient and more efficient and more productive. So there are some things that we have in terms of services. I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death again, but we want to be able to accelerate our ideas in terms of our experiences, specifically when we start using Civil 3D in reference to grading. Okay. So let's see. Just want to make sure. Just want to check something real quick. So we'll go back right now. So what I have is I just have this idea of as this site, and what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the things you want to be able to utilize in reference to just visualizing and utilizing what you want to do with this existing ground topo. And the reason I made reference to feature lines. So if we look right up here at the toolbar, and let's see if we have a delay, just want to make sure. So the reason we have feature lines, I just want to make sure that this is working here. So Clements, I have a question if you're there. Can you see the toolbar pull up? So I can see it on my screen. It's just not changing. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
we can see everything that you're doing. So it's fine.
Want to make sure. Okay. I mean, I should be proactive about these kind of things, right? I want to make sure you're getting what I'm trying to give. So thank you. So
you're welcome.
Again, we have this site, and typically what I don't try to do is again, PowerPoint you to death, and then you don't need to see me blabbering about this. But one of the things that we want to take a look at is I have this existing ground site. And the first thing in terms of making reference to this site is trying to determine slope patterns and things like that. Slope patterns, flow patterns. I need to be able to examine from this existing ground how we can modify this site, display properly so this site is visually represented with drainage, directions, and slopes. And the simplest way to do that. is if I pick on my surface and if I right click and I go to edit surface style, and we're just going to make this quick and simple. Under edit surface style, I have the ability to turn on slope arrows. And from these slope arrows, now you can kind of see in reference to where water is draining, because everyone isn't able to kind of read what contours are really saying. So I've kind of got like this existing ground road. This parking lot we won't worry about, in these building pads up here. But in reference to determining slope and flows, the simple thing that I will do at any time is I will put a polyline right through here. And if I pick on this and right click, there's a couple things that I can do. One is do a quick profile. So if I go a couple different places, we can do a quick profile. And then what do I want to understand in reference to the slope that's across here? So knowing this, I just have a polyline. But this is the ideal of why I use feature lines. If I create a feature line from this object, it brings up this toolbar in reference to creating a feature line. I want to be able to assign elevations. From assigning those elevations, I want to grab those elevations from the surface. I don't want to insert intermediate, but this allows me to grab elevations and stations along the contours and the triangles that we clearly don't see yet. So I'm going to select OK. So from this, if I pick on this, this is why I talk about using feature lines. If I come to this elevation editor, this tells me right now, this thing is over 900 feet. It has stationing, it had elevation, it has length, and then it has grades ahead and back. Now this little icon right here makes reference to it being crossing a feature line. But if I right click, we can quickly address that by moving this to a site called none. So back to the ideal of I'm coming across my site at an elevation of 774 all the way to 758 at 900 feet. And if I wanted to, I can move this around at any point and re-grab the elevations by draping this right on the surface. Again, if I wanted to insert intermediate, there's a difference that we're about to see. It grabs the elevations. Now I've draped this feature line on this site. And what we have to do is we have to start looking at the bigger picture that I am trying to represent in reference to this site or these small examples. So it's grabbed all the elevations, even if I wanted to, based upon my feature line. And I'm going to close this. And I'm just going to erase that because I'm going to make this a little bit simpler. So I'm going to zoom in here and make this a little bit simpler. Any point, I can come in and say, I want to create a feature line. I'll pick on this point, and then I'll just pick right there. And then at the command line, it is making reference to a specific elevation or grab it from the surface. From the surface, I'm going to grab this existing elevation, making it simple. And from that point to this point right here. At the command line, again, this is the reason why I use a feature line. Because it's giving me an example of, can I go a grade, can I go a slope, an elevation, a difference? Or do I want to grab the elevation from the surface? And I'll just pick the surface. And then it grabs that elevation, and then it's just that simple. And why do I use a feature line? Because it's giving me information without me having to put my hand on a calculator. At any point in time, I can come in and insert an elevation point. Well, what is this elevation point? Well, maybe I want this elevation point at the midpoint of this line. If I came in and just select this midpoint, I pick it and it tells me exactly what that elevation is. And I'll just select OK. So now I have this elevation, so I still have these grades. So this is the beauty of working with a feature line. And if I pick on this and lengthen it, it's just giving me information without me having to say rise over run to determine a slope or a grade. And this is why I use feature lines. I can come in and make reference. I'm so much more efficient in terms of the things that I'm thinking in my head. Okay. Feature lines. There's a lot we can do with feature lines. Back to this idea of determining slopes and grades. If I pick on my surface and go to add labels, I can create a slope. Where is this slope? I need a 2-point slope. Remember the rise over run. So if I pick this point and pick this point, it's giving me, and I'm just going to make this a little bit larger so we can see it, a 2% grade. Well, if that's 2%, what if I come back and I like to use my ortho command? What if I just came back 50 feet and I did an object snap? Now I got a 3.1% slope. Well, what if I come to this point here and say, well, what is that grade at that point? Or what is this grade at this point? This just gives me information to make me help make decisions a lot faster and more efficiently. So determining slope patterns. So also, why am I looking at this site? Because I need to determine high points, low points, mounds, where water is draining to. So we got some serious low points here, but ultimately I have some things to kind of determine my slope patterns and my flow patterns in reference to elevations and slopes per triangle and slope arrow that I'm seeing. So this is just one way in reference to determining slopes and flow patterns, and then just making it simple. Now, secondly, determining from this site, there's a couple things that I have to make reference to. Again, the direction of where these arrows are pointing are going from east to west, and then a downward slope for this existing ground. And I just be able to, anytime I think about grading, I just want to determine that I'm thinking drainage. So I know where ultimately everything is draining. Now I can think about where I would need to put a detention pond. And based upon that, of these overall slope arrows and these existing contours, I can see where rainfall and runoff flows. So for the most part, towards the south and to the east, where I might need my basins. So based upon the parameters, the design parameters that they have given me for this site, I got these elevations, I got these standards that I need to meet in reference to from my existing ground. I got some labels around here based upon the property line. Now I just want to come in here and really what I want to do is define my limits of grading. So my limits of grading, what does that do for me? Well, that allows me to tie in similarly to what I did with a feature line, because this is where you're going to tie into the existing ground. So I just have a feature line that I laid out across the whole site in terms of my limits of grading that I want to tie into the existing ground. How did we do that? Just drew a polyline, created a feature line, grabbed the elevations from the surface, just like I did the simple line there. From that, again, I want to determine where I'm going to put my detention bases. Okay, so really quick, I got just these polylines. And based upon these polylines, I got an area and the kind of shape of the pond that I want to use specifically based upon the number in terms of the volume that we're trying to achieve for these ponds. So one of the things that becomes critical is how much volume can we get in here, and how do we create this pond to determine it pretty quickly. So the first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to create two surfaces. One surface is going to be this northeast surface. So if I pick on this, this is really quick and simple. If I pick on this, create a feature line from it, it creates a feature line. I don't even want to assign elevation to it because it's got elevation on it already from the polyline, 760. So I'm going to create, because this is a feature line, I can just add it to a surface. What is this surface going to be? It's going to be 760. I just call it 760 and I don't have to worry about it. Pretty simple. 760. I'm going to create another feature line from this object. I don't even have to assign an elevation because it has an elevation on the feature line already. If I look at it, this elevation is at 755. Clearly, we're talking about a 5-foot difference in terms of pond, northeast pond to southeast pond over here. Northwest pond to southeast. Okay. So if I pick on this feature line, I can add in as a break line. I want to create this, and I'm going to call it 755. Pretty straightforward. Now I have two surfaces. So 755 and 760. Now I have a basin up here. So this first basin, I want to go in. If I pick on it, it's already a feature line. The reason I use feature lines and not polylines or 3D polylines is because if I want to do some grading using this grading quote wizard, I'll select grading. It brings up this grading creation tools. I want to put this in a group. This group is going to be my southeast basin, and it's going to go in site 1. I'm going to select OK. From this, I just want to go a distance at a slope. The surface that I want to compare it to in reference to that is this 755 surface. And I'll show you the reason why in a second. So all I want to do is go a distance at a slope. I'll create grading. I'll pick on it. I'll pick the inside. I'll apply it to the entire length. It says a length of 15 feet. That's going to be fine. I'm going to go -5 to 1. I'll pick on it and hit escape. Now, the reason why it hasn't created my surface is because if I went in and went into my information of my southeast basin, I want to compare it to a surface. Also, under the properties, I'll select apply and OK. So from this, if I pick on this, I also want to be able to create an infill. From this, you can see this little triangle right here. And if I pick on it and go in and select 1, the elevation editor, or 2, the grading editor, I have functionality that will give me specific properties. So if I go into grading group properties, it's showing me that this is a grading group and the information, and I need to target the surface. So if I come in now, in terms of my grading group, and pick on this so we can visually see, if I right click and go to, and this is 2026. So you have this ability to add this to the model viewer. It's created the top and the bottom of my pond. And there's some features that you can display differently from that. But just as this grading, and if I come in to this grading group again, I'll come in, and from this, if I pick on this, I'll select OK, and we'll come back here. We want to create an automatic surface at 755. And from those properties, we'll close that. So this southeast basin, if I pick on it and go into surface properties and go to statistics, this data hasn't built my surface yet. This data has not built my surface yet based upon this grading. So the reason it has not did that is because when I go to create a surface originally, so I'm going to go back and make reference to this individually. I'll go back, and one more time. Okay, so from this, we have a surface over here. The surface over here is the southeast basin. It doesn't have any data in it. Once you come up to grading, create grading, from the southeast basin, I'm making reference to this surface that I want to compare it to. Also, I have a specific criteria, and then I got parameters based upon how I want it to project and what the distance is in terms of my grading. Based upon that, I can come in and specifically go to properties. Now, I'm going to come to my northeast basin. We're going to push this out, and we're going to walk through step by step to delete that. I'm going to come up to grading, create grading. This one is going to be, I'm going to create a new group name. This new group name. So that step to create this, to go into the grading group, we're going to say Northeast Basin. And again, this idea of determining the volume, and I want to compare it to 755. I want to compare it to my 760. So I'm going to create an automatic surface, 1 in 5 design. I select OK. And that's going to be fine. So let me make sure we address that really quick. Perfect. So this Northeast Basin. So all I want to do is from a distance and a slope, we'll create this, close this chevron, and I'll select create grading. I'll pick on it. I'll pick the side that I want to grade to. I want to apply the entire length at a distance of 15 feet. And I'm going to say -3 to 1. So it creates my grading. And I hit escape. So now from this, we have a small little triangle that's put here. We also want to create in our grading. I'll come back. We also want to create an infill. And I'll pick it right in there. And from that, now I have these two basins. So it's pretty straightforward if I did a rectangle. If I hold my cursor right here, it's going to give me an elevation of the existing ground. It's 761. I'm going to create a feature line. I'm going to assign it an elevation of 763. For clarity, I'm going to turn off these slope arrows. I'll select OK. The first thing when you're using this grading, and I select create grading, I'm going to create a new group. This is going to be called just my test. and I want to compare it to the existing ground. I'll select OK. I'll select OK. And I'll select OK. So I want to go a distance at a slope. When I select create grading, the first thing that it prompts me for is a feature line. And if you don't have one, it's going to say, do you want to create a feature line? So I'm going to select yes, and I'm going to say 15 feet, and I'm going to say -5. And then I'm going to create an infill. If I pick on the little diamond, and I right click, and I go to grading properties, grading group properties, it's showing me my cut and fill. It's just that simple in reference to determining what volume you need for your pond. The beauty of working with this, I can always come in here and select my grading volume tools. So this is just working with this pond thing. It's showing me, well, let's move this out a little bit, what my cut and fill is for that pond. If I wanted to, I can add a foot to it. And it's just going to tell me what it last was and then what it is when I raised it a foot. And then I can raise it another foot. And if I wanted to change specifically that increment, I could raise it 5 feet. So now it's telling me specifically how much fill, how much cut I have. And then we have this little tool right here called automatically raise. And I'm just going to say I want that to 1 cubic yard. What this will do is this will change what the feature line is that I started out with. Perfect example, 763.72. So it will do your cut and fill based upon you putting in parameters. If I had it to model view, it's just a pond. Pretty straightforward. If I right click and go to object viewer, it's just a pond. So a couple ways you can see that. Pretty straightforward. Okay. So limits of grading activity, setting up detention ponds, pretty straightforward. I'm just going to erase that right out. So as I'm still sharing, the next thing that we want to consider is this idea of the alignments that I want to put in for my roads. So I got these little areas for detention. I got the existing ground where it's sloping to. I just want to come in and say now for my roadway design, I just want to lay out what that is. And a corridor is typically how I would do it with a typical section. Pretty straightforward. As an example. And if I picked on this and said, I just want to create a corridor, we'll make this a little bit smaller. If I came up to corridors and say create a corridor, it brings up this dialog box. This new dialog box for creating a corridor came out in 2023. And it's some just different features. And we can use feature lines. That's been since 2017. But this new dialog box, a little bit different. So I can go in here and pick the alignment that I want to create. So if I pick on that, just as an example from here, if I pick on it, here's my alignment. I right click, it grabs my profile, and then I just want to grab the assembly, this residential road. Pretty straightforward. I want to tie it to the existing ground surface and select OK. And I select OK. Pretty straightforward. Rebuild the corridor. Here's my corridor. I'm going to show you, if you right click and go to corridor surfaces, you can build a corridor surface. 2 and 10 design, I want to add the top because that's the finished grade. No overhang necessary, but the overhang from my curb going down to my edge of pavement, the bottom of my curb and gutter, then to my edge of pavement, I want the contour to follow that. And then if I wanted a boundary in here, I could shrink wrap it in terms of corridor extents. I'm just going to select OK, rebuild the corridor. And that's my corridor. And here's my grading. Why is this critical in terms of grading? If I pick on my corridor, from this corridor, I can grab and extract a feature line from my corridor. Pretty straightforward. If I came up here to corridors, I like to show different ways to get to it. I could create a polyline. I can create a feature line from a corridor. If I pick on this, down at the bottom, it says select the feature line or select all. I select OK. It shows me all the way to my sidewalk, and I just select OK. Now from that, here's my feature line. If I pick on this, here's my feature line. It's got all the grades from my finished grade road. Now the beauty of this is, if I wanted to do, now this is if you had a horizontal road and you had a lot of similar, I always use this as like the barracks where everything is the same. This would work, but we know this not to be true. So if I pick on my corridor feature line, it's linked to my corridor. So if I moved it up and down, it would automatically update. So if I select remove dynamic link, then I pick on it. Here's my corridor. And now we're able to use it like a regular feature line. From that, if I use this stepped offset and I said, okay, I want to go a distance of 30 feet. And I pick this point, then it says at the command line, specify elevation difference, grade, slope. I want to go grade of 5%. Then it creates that. I hit enter. Then I'll pick this feature line one more time. And I'll say do a stepped offset. And then I'll say 50 feet. And then I'll pick that side. And then it says go a grade. And I might just say negative 0.5. So as a quick example, if I pick this feature line, pick this feature line, pick this feature line, I can add them to a surface and call this example. And from that, select OK, select OK, select OK. And now we have this example right here. Pretty straightforward. And it's just doing exactly what I told it. So if you wanted to do some lot grading, I'm going to undo a couple times. Not a big deal. I'm going to move on in terms of lot grading and as well. So these grading objects, because I'm going to show you grading optimization in like 5 minutes, I set this grading right here. In these pads, I just use the feature line. I can use spot elevations in terms of what I want at the edge of pavement and the right of way. Those I could do those things, or I can just come in here and say this is a polyline. Well, if this is a polyline, this is just really quick. If this is a polyline and this has elevations to it, this has an elevation to it. So if I came in and said, I want to create a feature line from an object, I want to assign elevations. If I came in and picked on this, it's got elevations tied to it. Now, from that, I wouldn't typically do one first. I would pick on this and say, select similar. This is all polylines, and I want to turn them into feature lines. Create feature lines from objects. I don't want to assign elevations. They got elevations already. Now, why am I doing this? Because I can pick on this and say, select similar, and add this to the surface as a break line. I'm going to call this test 2, just in terms of some grading for pads. Pretty straightforward. And if I pick on this, now I've graded those pads in terms of a rough grading. Well, what about the swales and everything? Well, if I pick on this surface and I go edit surface style, I'm going to change this in a second. This one, we're going to say no display real quick. But everything is flowing. If I got 8-foot walkouts and everything is flowing. And I'm not doing a lot of grading, point-to-point grading. I'm just using feature lines to do this grading. And I've already showed you what it's like to come in and pick on this feature line and tell it specifically. I want to go a grade. And if I put them in the middle of the lots, I can have swales in the middle of the lots. So just using this technique will help you grade faster. Feature lines. Swale. It just has elevations tied to it. Well, this thing is swelling all the way to the back of these lots and all the way down this site. All the way down. And it's just feature lines that's going to my pond. And I've just kind of got this kind of set here. So from that, I also had this final grade for my lots. So in comparison, I can come in for my final grade top. I can compare that to my existing ground. How will we do that? I would just come in here on my Analyze tab, create a volume. This volume is going to be based upon volume is a number in our head. We don't need to see it visually, but we need to use the existing ground, and then we need to compare, my pre-final top. And then it's going to give me my cut and fill. So pretty straightforward. And then if I came over here to volume, it's just letting me know what I just showed you in terms of my volume. So again, accelerating these tools that will accelerate and help with efficiency and productivity. Now, one quick thing. I'm going to open up another drawing here, if I can find it. Let's see. Ultimately, I end up with two things. Ultimately, I end up with a finished grade site that I put in the plan and profile. And if I come here, this is just this site in terms of grading. With spot grading, feature lines, a corridor, walkout basements on the south, and then further, just straight building pads. High points in the middle, so we'll slope down. Not a big deal. The two ponds that we are working with. Ultimately, we get it to that point. I got this one road in. I've added some data up there. Okay. Just real quick now. Back to the site. This corridor. I'm just going to get it out the way. But one of the things I want to be able to do, let's say this parking lot thing. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to draw a polyline from here to here. From this polyline, I'm just going to move it. And I'm going to put it right here. This surface, if I pick on it, this existing ground surface, because this is this road, if I select it, and then I just want to add 2 spot elevations from this endpoint here, endpoint here. That's 762. I'm going to create this feature line from an object. From this feature line, I'm going to assign elevation. I'm going to say 763. I'm going to say right here, I'll pick on the feature line. Right now, with this feature line, I'm going to say, I want this to be here from the top, 763, coming down in terms of drainage, negative 2%. We're going to make it work out. So negative 2%, but I want to tell it in this little area right here. This little area right here, I'm going to make this 762.45. And whatever it is what it is. Now hit enter. So this gives me an idea. I have to tie into the role of what this feature line should be. So drainage. Now I want drainage coming down. Now I want it coming across. So I'll pick on this feature line and I'll do a stepped offset. From this step offset, I'm going to say through, and I'm going to say through this point right here. And it says, what's the grade? I'm going to say 3%. And it creates that grade. So then I'm going to pick this feature line, and I'm going to pick this feature line, and I'm going to say add to the surface as a break line. And I'm going to call this 3%. I'm not going to get all technical. 3%. And I'll select OK. Select OK. We're going to make this in terms of the triangles with 25. Select OK. There's my surface. This is a temporary surface. From that, I got this parking lot, but I know the drainage scheme. So I'm going to pick on this. This is a feature line. I want to grab the elevations from this surface of my 3%. And I'm going to select OK. And then I'll pick it. And then just grabbed all those elevations. Just making it plain and simple. From that, I don't even need this temporary surface anymore. Because this right here, if I pick on it and add it to a surface as a break line, and I'll call it lot. And I'll select OK. And I'll select OK. And I'll select OK. All I've created was just this temporary surface. And from that temporary surface, I've created this lot. Pretty straightforward. What about curb and gutter? From that, I can use this corridor. Create a corridor. From that, I'm going to use this feature line. The feature line I'm going to use is this one. And I'm going to say this feature line, and I'm going to use this assembly. This is going to be my curb and gutter assembly. I select OK. I select OK. Rebuild the corridor. Now I've just created from this my curb and gutter. Everybody get that? And from that, it looks kind of jaggedy, but clearly we can clean that up pretty quickly by saying edit frequency. And frequency in here, this whole region. So we'll say tangents, we'll do 10. Curve increment, we'll do 0.2. And select OK. Now it's nice and smooth. From that, I'm going to pick on this polyline, and I'm going to pick on it, polyline, and say select similar. So from this polyline, I'm going to say create feature lines from number. From that, I'm going to say assign that from my lot surface. Lot surface. From this, now I can say, based upon this corridor, I want to add in baselines. These baselines are going to be my feature lines. Feature lines that I just added in. I could give these feature lines a name so I could filter these things out if I wanted to. But from that, we'll just pick them. Not a big deal. Feature line. 11. 12. And just kind of give you an idea in terms of what we want to be able to do with these curb and gutters. And feature line. And I could have selected them all in the filter, but I'm going to select OK. Here it is. And then I can come in and select curb and gutter and select that. And select OK, rebuild by corridor. Now we have something that looks like this in terms of my corridor with my parking lot. And I'm doing things pretty quick. Okay, so now we have this in terms of we got our curb and gutter in our parking lot. So we just add this, create a surface from it. Pretty straightforward. Now, doing all these things, I would have put a pond here, a building pad right here. This, again, takes probably this whole site a week. Grading optimization. All I have in terms of grading optimization, and grading optimization allows you to optimize these design parameters based upon zones that you can utilize for your site. As a quick example, if I come to my Analyze tab, and we're getting close, I'll come to my Analyze tab. I've created those building pads, 2 ponds, 1 retaining wall, and 2 zones, and I put some drain lines in between. From that, if I select optimize, it's going to prompt me what surface. I'll pick on it. And then it creates this interface. So I'm making sure just want to make sure everyone can see this. We're going to come right back. I'm just stopping my screen share for one moment. Then I'm coming back so we can see the grading optimization tool. Okay, so I got my grading limit. Similar to the site, I got my exclusion zone, which is this road from my corridor surface. And then I got a specific zone. So what does this allow me to do? Well, if I come in, I can say, based upon these parameters, my objective is cut and fill, balancing the site. I want to run it, 100,000 iterations. More than what I want to do with a HP calculator and grading tools in Civil 3D. What it does is this optimizes this site for me based upon parameters of each zone. I put some walkout basements over here to kind of show you, but some drain lines in between. I put some walkouts over here. The ponds aren't even turned on, but as an example, just so we can see, if I come to my object browser for my ponds, I want to cut those on. I'm going to cut this retaining wall on because we didn't even see that also. These building pads, don't even have to worry about it. But here you have this retaining. I just threw it in there so we could see what it is to use a retaining wall. And when I go to optimize this thing, you will see the 2 ponds and this retaining wall coming to fruition as we just kind of look at it. Now, this site isn't very large. 20 acres. But I did this on a 50-acre site similar with more depth from a drone flyover. So you can see it's grading my pond. And from these, in terms of my object browser, if I came in and picked on the pond, I could tell it whether it was a dry pond or a wet pond, what the maximum storage is, what the depth of my pond is, whether I want to put a berm, whether I want to allow the boundary to change as it's designing, or on a north side, same thing. I can have storage depth, berm, even freeboard that I can put in that it will lay out for my pond. See how the retaining wall works. I can specifically tell it from my retaining wall. I want the wall to be at a certain depth with a maximum height in reference to this wall. So I just got things going on. So grading optimization, this is something that we really want to take advantage of in reference to that. Because, again, efficiency, productivity is something we want to take advantage of. And if you think about what I did in terms of assigning elevations to a surface, adjusting those slopes of the feature lines, building a surface from the feature lines, editing those feature lines, adding incremental elevation points and things like that, excuse me, opposed to what I've done here, my grading limit. If I pick on that, that's just my outside limits of grading that's tying into my existing ground. And then I told it I want to add in a zone for my zone for the road. Don't do anything inside this road because I grabbed that data from the corridor. So that's an exclusion zone. So we just got a couple zones that I've put in here, and I've got a rough grade of this site. Now again, this retaining wall, I'm going to cut that off because I'm not even really using a retaining wall in this site. But just showing you some of the tools that you'll be able to take advantage of. And as you can see, if I look at cut and fill, it's working on the site. And it's keeping an account of my cut and fill. And look at where I'm at. So, again, offsetting grading lines, which is a polyline. Draw a polyline for my influence for my drainage arrows. Assign a zone for my grading. Rough grade for pads. Run a grading optimization until this feasibility shows me what's going on in terms of optimizing. And from that, I can make adjustments. And then it also makes recommendations about what's going on. Edge of grading limits are too steep. Well, if that is the case, I can always go in here into my grading limits and change what I want that to be. So as an example, my grading limits are 0 to 33. I can come in here and stop this. Come in here and say, I want this to be 40%, 20%, 5%. So just some of the things we want to be able to do in terms of grading optimization. So from that, specifically, building pads, parking lots, retaining walls, drain lines, detention ponds, all these things in reference to grading. An overall project, you'll save 70% using grading optimization. And it's not for everything. Because if you were doing a small site with a building pad, and said, I just wanted to grade them, you can do that with feature lines. Last but not least, on the Home tab for 2026, what you have is the ability to do ponds. Create a pond, tell it what the depth is, create underground storage, tell it what underground storage and what you want to use. You also have the ability to do channels. So pretty straightforward. And I just created one right up here to kind of give you some insight in terms of channel. It's just a channel. And if I pick on it, yeah, it's got properties. Storage, inflows, outflows. I don't have an outpipe going out. A lot of things to try to get into 1 hour, but clearly there are some advantages. And these things, grading isn't simple, because if it was simple, anybody would walk off the street and do grading. Clint, are you still there?
I'm still there, Ken.
So I didn't want to go over too much in terms of time, but just wanted to, make reference in terms of what we're doing. Were there any questions?
There don't seem to be any question on the chat. If you guys have any question, feel free to drop it right now in the chat before we wrap up this webinar.
Yeah, there's a grading. It's not as simple as,
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Kenneth, for this very interesting webinar. I know it was very meaningful for our attendants. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And thank everybody for joining.
Yeah, there don't seem to be any questions. So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you spending your time with us. And trust it was really, as I said, meaningful and impactful for you and your business. And we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Have a great day, everyone.